I'm here at the Catholic Leadership Centre on a beautiful sunny autumn day here in Melbourne, and I'm with Philipp Ozores, the Secretary-General of Aid to the Church in Need, or known as ACN. It's an organisation that's worldwide, does some magnificent work. Firstly, Philipp, welcome to Melbourne.
Thank you very much.
And it's lovely to have you here. You're here as part of the Plenary Council and talking to people over the week. The bishops have got a very busy week ahead, and it's lovely to have you here in our fair city.
Thank you very much.
So, I want to talk about Aid to the Church in Need. Just give us a brief explanation of exactly what the organisation is and does.
Yes, so Aid to the Church in Need is one of the few Catholic charities which are organised on a worldwide level.
Right.
Its purpose is to serve the suffering and persecuted Christians around the world. Unfortunately, there are still many Christians being persecuted for their faith. And it's funded solely from the private generosity of donors around the world. So we have an office in Australia, which is now doing communication locally, and we have a lot of benefactors in Australia, as we have in many other countries, from Chile to Canada and many European countries, South Korea. So it's really it's a global network of generosity in solidarity with the Christians around the world. And the headquarters now, by chance, the organization was founded by a Dutch priest. The headquarters are now in Germany, close to Frankfurt. And we have about 20 nationalities working there.
Fantastic.
I myself, I'm half Spanish, half German.
Yes.
And that's in the headquarters, that's where we serve the project applications from all over the world, from the dioceses and priest sisters around the world. So we receive around 8,000 applications every year.
Goodness me.
From 150 countries, from Asia, from Africa, Eastern Europe, Latin America. And so that's where we decide which projects to fund, and we can only do this thanks to the generosity of just faithful, very, very loyal, lovely Catholic people from around the world who contribute, mostly not very rich people. From the little they have, they contribute. The mites of the widow of the world, I would say, are funding more than 5,000 projects around the world for the suffering Christians, which is amazing.
It is amazing. And I think a lot of people watching this on our Melbourne Catholic website will be possibly surprised to hear, as we live in a very free country, that there are so many persecuted Christians around the world. Now, I know you're putting a lot of work in, let's say, in the Middle East,
yes.
Syria, Iraq,
absolutely.
Countries like that. Tell us the plight of people in these countries, for a start.
Yes.
Then I'd like to explore Sri Lanka and the recent bombings, if we might, as well.
Yes. So, yes, it's for many people, it's surprising to hear that indeed there are countries where people are not allowed to live their faith freely, and often not just Christians, also of other religions.
Yes.
But it happens that because of the presence of Christians around the world, Christianity is nowadays the most persecuted religion around the world. Thankfully, most Christians are not persecuted, but
yes.
Among the persecuted people, Christians are the biggest group. Probably more than ever in history of Christianity. And a lot happened in the Middle East. The situation there is very complex. There are a lot of reasons for the wars going on. But definitely Christians have become, solely because of their faith, the target of very, very significant violence in countries like Iraq, like Syria. And so our purpose as a charity is to very quickly give them substantial help from the one side, really just as an act of solidarity to suffering people.
Yeah, sure.
But also with the perspective that I think it's our duties as Christians to make sure that Christianity can prevail in every part of the world. We have, as the vision statement for our organization, is to create a world in which Christianity can subsist, can thrive everywhere. It doesn't mean everyone has to become a Christian, of course, but it means that everyone around the world has the possibility to get in touch with the gospel, to get in touch with the church, that the church can exist in that country.
A magnificent vision, I might say. Sticking with the Middle East,
yes. Yeah.
The assistance you provide, is it all financial or is it way beyond that?
It's, we have several levels. Let's say the most practical level is the financial assistance.
Yes.
It means, I mean, just to give you a perspective financially, I mean, only in Syria in the last 8 years we have given more than 80 million euros, which is, I think, more than 160 million Australian dollars, thanks to the donations from all over the world. And this was very specific, very concrete assistance for Christian families who are able to survive. The winters are very cold. Get medicine, get food. But the normal help we do is very practical. It's directed to allowing the church to exercise its pastoral mission.
Yes.
So it means giving a car, so very practical to a priest, but this car will allow the priest to bring the sacraments to a much wider range of people than before, just with a motorcycle, or in some countries maybe he just had a donkey and suddenly he has a decent four-wheel drive, or repairing churches, or church infrastructure, like possibly a kindergarten or a parish hall. So after this first emergency help which we gave out in millions to the Christians in the Middle East, now the next level, and we are there in Iraq and Syria, we're just getting there slowly as the hostilities are dying down.
Sure.
I was just in Syria a month ago. But in Iraq now we're passing to the next level, while a lot of other charities have come in. We now help the Christians rebuild, and the local church, a bit larger infrastructure which is relevant to the community. So big churches, the parish halls, which are the centers of the communities there in the Nineveh Plains.
Yes.
So this is the practical level, which is very relevant. But along it, the message we always receive, it's a message of deep gratitude, even if sometimes we do not have enough funds to fulfill all their needs, of course. But they say just the symbolic power of this message. It's so important to know they're not left alone, that people around the world realize that they're there, they're suffering, that we think of them, we give what we can, and that we keep them in their prayers, and that we are one global Catholic community who takes care of each other, and that we all together help each other, and we have the trust that in the end the good Lord will bring everything to a good end. So this is as important for them as the material help.
Yeah, sure. And like taking Iraq or Syria, you say you're sort of trying to get into Syria now as it is dying down a little. Have you set up in these countries, or do you intend to set up, or is it just too difficult?
Well, our policy is always to work with a local church. So we hardly have any own boots on the ground, which would be very expensive.
Yes.
But the Catholic Church is everywhere. Actually, when all the charities leave, the Catholic Church is still there. So we work with the local people, with the priests, sisters and lay people who are still there and who want, mostly volunteers, who want to help their people. But then what we do is we go there, we train these people, and we create local teams of volunteers which have to work according to very strict standards, because it's a lot of money we're giving. And we want it to be effective and well reported. So it means first we have to know that the Christians in Iraq and Syria, they are very well-formed people. Engineers, doctors, lawyers. So for them it's not an intellectual challenge to do proper work. They just need to learn from us how we would like to do it, assess the damage, understand who needs help, then prioritize the needs, creating a proper help program, and then it's our job to bring in the funds to do the communication around the world, as in countries like Australia, and hoping to awaken their solidarity. And then the funds come in, and according to strict standards, the reconstruction is done, the families who are most in need are helped first, and then afterwards we need to have very detailed reporting, because it's both for it's for the benefactors mainly, so that they can know that the money was well used.
Makes sense.
But then also, unfortunately, when there is money, there are always questions. How is it used? Why did you give the money to that project and not to the other? So you need always very clear criteria, which afterwards then you can follow up on. And you can say, look, this is what we spent and this is why we spent it. And actually, we can prove that we spent it. So, and all of this can only be done efficiently without our own people. Local people can do it much better, but they need to be well trained and follow up. So that's why, I was in Syria a month ago, and the war was still going on. We were in Aleppo, and actually the forces that are fighting the government were a few kilometers away, but we knew that the hostilities had died down. I was in Iraq 2 years ago when we had to decide on whether to do a big support program, and I still saw I hear the fighting going in Mosul.
Wow.
So But it's not, we don't do crazy things. I mean, the local people are very well aware on the real risks. So we always go with local people. But it's important to be early, because that's when the need is most dire. Because people are have just suffered the violence, and the international help usually has a long delay in coming in.
Yeah, sure.
So you can't just tell people, look, the next year you're going to be without food. Don't worry, then it will be coming.
Correct.
No, then they will leave.
Yeah.
Or they will die.
And we've seen that happen.
Yeah, and we've seen it happen
in countries all over
Absolutely,
the world.
yeah.
So, let's talk about Sri Lanka.
Yes.
A very recent memory
Yes,
for
yeah.
everyone watching
Yes.
this Melbourne Catholic
Yeah.
video.
Yeah.
And I know Mozambique also
Yes.
recently has been hit with a massive cyclone.
Yes.
So take us to those places
Yes.
and the work of aid to the church in need
Yes.
there.
Yes. So countries like Sri Lanka and Mozambique, we have every year we have dozens of projects with them anyway. I mean,
Right.
these are core countries which are being helped by us. And Mozambique is a Catholic country, but a very, very poor one. And Sri Lanka has the challenge of having, to deal with the coexistence with many different religions. It's not just Christians. I mean, you have different Christian churches there. You have a Muslim community. You have a strong Buddhist community. And you have the burden of a decade-long civil war, which
Yes.
was terrible.
Yes.
I mean, and everyone in Sri Lanka is just they're trying to build have a track record and stability, which over time, as we've seen in many countries, you need time to let the wounds heal.
And Sri Lanka was getting to that point.
It's getting there, yeah.
In tourism sense,
Yeah,
it's become
absolutely.
a real go-to destination.
Definitely.
And those bombings were just shocking.
Absolutely shocking, and we've unfortunately and it's enough to have some very violent people to cause damage to a lot of families and a lot of sorrow. And at the same time, create the risk of an escalation of conflict.
So in, say, the bombings in Sri Lanka, are you on the phone the next day?
No, the same day.
Same day. What can we do?
Absolutely.
And
actually, we called a few hours. It was Easter Sunday.
Yes, it was.
I was on holiday with my beach in the Atlantic in Europe with my children playing around me, and I saw it. I immediately called the press officer. She's Spanish. She was having lunch with her family in Spain.
Yes.
And she immediately called our project responsible, who was in France. She's French, just to give you a perspective on our international collaboration. She was having a family lunch, and immediately we set up, the first thing was understand what do our partners need, and also send them a message of solidarity.
Excellent.
So we spoke with some bishops the same day. Of course, people were very shocked, and actually the first day they just said, look, we need to see what we can do first.
Take stock almost.
Yes, and be with our people.
Yes.
And the next days we just kept close. And so very quickly what has become clear is that what they don't need is just a massive humanitarian support. I mean, the psychological, the human damage has been much bigger than the material damage compared to, for example, Mozambique, where you have a catastrophe for thousands of people and we have a whole landscapes and cities destroyed. This was a very targeted attack which caused terrible human havoc. But materially, people now need the solidarity, the love, but not so, the material needs are not so big. And so what the Sri Lanka church has been telling us, and we actually next week we're doing a special trip there to stay, even see on the ground what they really need. But it seems that the trend is, look, we need long-term support. It's not just now where we have this terrible attack that
and
go away. No,
it's
about we need the long-term help and presence of your organization, Solidarity. So it's, of course, the victims need our help, but we can do it. That's what they tell us. What we need is a strengthening of the Christian presence in the ground, not a hostile one to other religions, one that builds peace, one that stretches out the hand to the other communities. And also, we need the special support now to make sure that Sri Lanka just is not vulnerable to these attacks. We just need to make sure that our people don't want war. And we have had enough of it. But when these things happen, and it's small minorities are enough to possibly spark the fire again, we need to strengthen the basic culture of peace in our country, to make sure that these attacks do not bring us back into the past. And this is what we're doing now. We've just approved a special set of projects of €100,000, which is very short term, but these are not necessarily directed to the victims now. These are really taken care of by the local people. It's about fundamentally strengthening the local church. And next week we will be there, and hopefully we'll be able to approve another package of good projects for the local church.
I'm sure many thousands of people watching you, Philip, hearing you talk with such passion and knowledge, would like to know, how can they contribute to aid to the church in need? Do you run appeals, or is it via a website? Give us an indication. I think you'll be getting a lot more people supporting you, having heard how much great work you're doing around the world.
Well, thank you so much. We have a lovely Australian team. It was my pleasure yesterday to sit with them. Excellent. And when I visit, I always visit the local church, but it's also about visiting our teams.
Of course.
And just share, how's the work. It's not easy to raise funds. There's so many good causes, but I do believe that yes, we have a great cause if one is a convinced Catholic, and we have a lovely team here in Australia, and we have a website, and Aid to the Church in Need Australia. So it's very easy to give over the website.
Excellent.
And our main office is currently still in Sydney, but we're building also a regional network more and more, and probably we have a lot of benefactors in Australia, by which in Melbourne. I really wish to thank them also, especially to all our faithful benefactors here. And there's a phone call also, so just ring our colleagues up. They're there, and give you all information. So it's not difficult to be generous to the worldwide church.
Philipp Ozores is the Secretary General of Aid to the Church in Need. You'll find the website quite easily. You might be inspired to donate and support. But I think and hopefully everyone who's seen this video today, Philip, has got a better idea of the great work you're doing around the world. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoy your lovely trip here in Melbourne.
I'm already enjoying it. Thank you very much.